Being a corrections officer is kind of like being a parent or maybe a coach, watching on the sidelines, making sure everybody gets where they need to go and gets taken care of. They're the unsung heroes of law enforcement. It's not a glamorous job. It's not as dynamic as being a police officer or a firefighter, but it is an essential job, and it has its own satisfaction, its own risks, and its own rewards. Rob Yantis is the commander at the Pennington County Jail, a guy whose career path started down a very different road.
I was in the ministry since I was in my 20s all the way up until this opportunity came around. So there's a lot that goes into working with people, and especially people that are in this environment, and having the mind of trying to help people get what they need. Certainly my former life played into this very well.
I was going to say the irony is inescapable, but when you explain it like that, it's obvious that there are some things that play into the other role.
Safety and security, institutional safety, making sure that the facility is what it needs to be, so that not only the staff are safe, but also the inmates. I mean, that's probably our number one priority. If you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, I mean, we have that base place that we're at. But then as you begin to move up that, the whole purpose of what we do is to rehabilitate people. There's a huge misunderstanding. People don't realize that most people will not stay in jail. Most of the people who come to jail are only there for a short time, or even if they're waiting for their trial. There's so many programs like probation and all these different things that people get out on, and people don't realize that we're working with people that will be back in the community before very long. And so our goal while they're here is to influence them. And we tell people all the time, some of these folks have never had someone speak kindly to them. There's people that have gone through their whole lives, they've never interacted with people that treated them with respect. And so a lot of our job is, when I came here, and I tried to balance who I was before and what my new role was as a correctional officer, what was the right place, where does that play in? What it came down to was representing the best of our community to people who probably need to see it the most.
Yantis says he wants the public to know the truth about what conditions are like inside a modern-day jail and what it's really like to work there. He's got his work cut out for him. He has to battle a lot of false ideas that are coming out of Hollywood.
Whatever you've seen in a TV program is not what we are. There are those.
You mean it's not Andy Griffith and Barney Fife?
I wish that would be fun. I would enjoy that just a little bit. Probably not the same job security, but Rapid City is a small community in a big town, and we have the heart of a small community. We're small community minded, and so that is how we deal with it. Even though we hold well over 600 inmates, our desire is to be the relational community, and so some of the biggest misconceptions happen, I think, because people think that that's still the way business is done, but we've been corrections officers, not jailers, for a very long time. We've been corrections officers and not jailers. So our goal is to rehabilitate the folks that are here. And so a lot of the nonsense that you see in TV programs is not who we are. We hire consummate professionals. We have people that we do all of our training in-house. And so when someone comes to work with us, they can have no college education, they can come to us directly. And so somebody coming in at 21 years old can start a career, and we will do all the training, and it'll be a lifetime career for that person with all the benefits that government has and our county does, which is really great. But what you do is you take people and you make them into the people that are trying to rehabilitate the people that they're working with. And so that's every interaction that we have with those folks. So a huge misconception, and a lot of times, I mean, this is one of the things I wish I could tell, and something that's hard to say to families when we're talking with them. I listen to the phone calls, I hear the phone calls, I see the mail, the letters that go out. I watch the manipulation that occurs. A lot of people that are in jail manipulate their families. It's not uncommon for them to tell terrible horror stories about what's occurring in the jail because they want the sympathy, they want the different things. And it's very hard to have that conversation because if I'm telling you your son or daughter is lying to you, sometimes you react very negatively to that. But I've had conversations where I've finally been able to break through and say, listen, I am so sorry that this person is manipulating you. Maybe it's a spouse, maybe it's somebody else. This is not the way we do business. That's not who we are in this community. A lot of times that's the misconception, and then it's perpetuated through the family members and what they go through.
Officer Robert Snyder is a 6-year veteran as a corrections officer at the Pennington County Jail. He says he got his start on this career path after working in retail.
To be honest, I just seen the opening, got curious about it, looked into it, applied, and gave it a shot and fell in love with it. So
Okay.
I'm happy I did it.
Did you have that people interaction experience doing retail?
Yes, you have the good interactions, and sometimes you have the interactions where people are upset, and it's your job to diffuse it, calm them down, things like that, de-escalate the situation, and
That's
that
interesting.
comes in handy here.
That's interesting that these regular 9-to-5 type jobs, you can use that to parlay that into a job like this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So describe for me what your average workday is like.
Average workday, show up, get a staff briefing, we'll meet, talk about things that may have happened or just reminders on policies, things of that nature. You report to pod, do a shift change, get a little rundown from the officer that was up there prior to you. Then you unlock and just interact with the inmates throughout the day. Make sure that they're fed, make sure they get to their medical appointments, get to their court, get to their programs, be it their GED program or their religious programming that's offered to them.
So you're basically directing people, telling them what they need to do, where they're supposed to be, what time they're supposed to be?
Yep, all while maintaining a inmate interaction and safety and security. But so you got a lot of stuff going on. Someone's attorney's showing up, someone's going to court, you get a call about a medical appointment. You just got to be able to stay on the ball and maintain safety and security.
Now, I gotta imagine, officer, that it's not all a walk through the tulips, though, when you're dealing with people that, sometimes they don't like to play by the rules, sometimes they've got an attitude. So how does that play into what you do?
I would agree. A lot of times especially down booking, you're dealing with people who are having the worst day that they've had in a while. They're upset. They may have had an argument with their spouse, things of that nature. They're angry. They're not necessarily angry at you, they're just angry. And it's your job, to understand it, but also try to defuse them, make sure they maintain safety. Don't let them act up, hurt anybody, hurt themselves, and basically just defuse the situation.
Unlike the situation inside a state prison, people who end up in jail come and go. And Snyder says it's not unusual to run into someone on the outside in a very different setting.
I do run into these individuals, some of the individuals in here out on the streets, but I've always treated them with respect, the same I would.
Wait. You meet these people here, and then you run into them later on out on the streets.
Yeah, you'll be in line at Walmart with them. You'd be like, hey, how you been, man? Haven't seen you in a bit.
No kidding.
So we interact with them here. We're right in the same room with them here, and we're right in the same community with them out there.
And they immediately recognize you?
Yes, I'll be walking through Walmart and I'll hear, hey, CO. You turn around, look, you're like, hey, how's it going?
So it's not kind of an awkward conversation?
No, as long as, you've been treating people well, been treating them with respect, they have no reason to come out there and treat you with any less respect than you gave them.
I had no imagination that could happen, that you would run into them here and then meet them on the outside.
Mm-hmm. It's actually fairly common in this town.
Another facility where you'll find corrections officers is the Western South Dakota Juvenile Services Center. Commander Joe Gutierrez says it's not a jail, it's something completely different.
We're one of 3 facilities in the country that take federal juveniles.
That take what?
Federal juveniles.
What do you mean by that?
A federal juvenile is a juvenile who commits an offense on a federal land, like a reservation, or commits a federal offense. So we've had kids anywhere from Puerto Rico, Mexico, California, Washington, all the surrounding areas. We could get a kid from anywhere in the state, or anywhere in the country, I'm saying. So it's pretty exciting that our staff has been selected to be one of 3, our facility has been selected one of 3 in the country to work with at-risk kids from all over. So it's kind of exciting that we have the ability to do that. And the reason we have the ability to do that is the programming that we offer here. And I'll tell you, the staff that we have here are second to none. You know, we hire the best because we want to be the best. And so with that, you know, we're always looking to recruit new correctional officers to our field. And to be a correctional officer here, you have to care, you have to have compassion, you have to want to wear many hats. You have to be the coach, you have to be the parent, you have to be the teacher, you have to be those type of things so that we can, help empower any kid who's having any challenges they might be going through.
The total number of kids at the center is 43, and they range in age from just 10 years old to 21.
You have many more situations to deal with. You've got kids with mental health issues. You've got kids that have a terrible home life. You've got kids, I mean, the list goes on and on and on. So my hat's off to you and your staff for being able to address all these situations.
Well, we are a holding facility for local, state, region, and federal kids from the age of 10 to 21. So with that being said, we offer 50 hours of programming a week. Programming means education. Education is our #1 program here. Our teachers are rock stars. Our teachers prepare them for graduation. Our teachers prepare them to take the GED test. We average probably 8 to 10 kids a year who actually get a diploma from our facility, which is pretty exciting. We think that if kids focus on their education when they leave here, they have an opportunity. The ones that don't have an education, you're kind of sinking yourself, but trying to get a job and trying to, to go out and and make a living for yourself.
Yeah.
So we're a unique facility, in fact, that we take that 10 to 21, but we're also unique because we offer a lot of services for kids to empower them to make better choices when they leave here.
So you've got, how many kids are in here right now?
Currently we're staffed for 41. Today we have 43 kids.
43. And you've got both female and male.
Correct.
How many of each?
We have currently 15 females, and that's probably the highest population of females we've had in a few years. We have a lot of females who are making some pretty poor choices, who are younger, who are getting involved, sometimes with people they shouldn't be involved in.
Yeah.
And they're challenging, but yet, we're empowering them to get the services they need as well to be successful. If you look around the building doesn't look like a jail, except maybe the rooms are here for security.
Yeah.
But it's more of like a group home type setting, more of like a dorm type setting where kids are going to come here, they're going to go to school, they're going to work on their programming, they're going to go to gym, they're going to get fed 3 meals a day, and they have a chance to be empowered to make better choices.
So based on all your years of doing this job, are there common denominators for when these kids come through your front door here and are processed into this facility? Are there common denominators that you're seeing as to why they end up here?
I think that, home life is a big part of it. I think we have so much trauma, with the kids that come here. There's generational trauma that kids need help getting through. I think that when you grow up in a house where people are drinking and using drugs and cheating the system, and that's normal, why wouldn't you think that's normal?
Yeah.
So then when you get in trouble, or someone who holds you accountable for it, they have to understand why it's important to make different choices.
Did I hear you earlier mention that sometimes you get people in here that it's a generational system or situation?
You bet. We've had staff here who've had parents of the juveniles that are in here now, and we've also have juveniles here now who are parents themselves. So there is generational.
Wait. You've got inmates here that are parents themselves.
We do. We have inmates here who have are parents themselves.
How do you accommodate that?
Family members are home taking care of the child,
Okay.
or Department of Social Services involved.
All right.
But it's pretty tough. Imagine, you're a dad or you're a mom and your kid is out there and you want to bond with them, but you can't because of a choice you made.
Yeah.
And that does happen.
Gutierrez has been the commander at the center for 12 years, and most of his past experience has been working with young people, and he says there's a good reason for that.
To do what we do, you have to love it. And I think that anytime that we have an opportunity to make a difference in someone's life or change the trajectory of where they're going is a win. And I think that we need to have more people in our society that are productive. And I think that by working here in the Juvenile Center, we still believe that we have a chance to turn lives around. We have a chance so that they can make better choices, make better decisions, be productive members of society. And most kids grow out of this type of behavior. Believe it or not, most kids grow out of it.
All right.
There's a few that the choices that they make today can cost and affect the rest of their lives. We've had kids here who come in at 14 and at 18, they go to the South Dakota Penitentiary for 40, 50 years. So we've had that here, but we've also had kids here for a day and go home and never come back. So we do see that, but I'll tell you, to work here in a juvenile setting, it's a great job if you want to work with kids, if you want to be that person who can help change someone's life. Because again, like I said, we wear many hats. You know, you're going to be the parent, you're going to be the coach, you're going to be the teacher, you're going to be the mentor, you're going to be a voice, you know, that's out there for them. And I tell staff all the time, you never know what you say or how you treat somebody that's going to make a difference in their lives, because they could be out of the facility and they're going to think, hey, Officer so-and-so told me that I should look at this. Officer so-and-so told me that I should do this different. And that's going to be in the back of their head, of their mind, so that what we tell them and how we interact with them can make a difference in their lives. If you apply to be a correctional officer, they usually give you a choice, whether you want to work with adults or whether you want to work with juveniles. And I'll put a plug in, come work with juveniles, because you know,
shameless plug there.
It's a smaller environment. We have 1 to 8 ratios for staff to detainees. And I think that if you're someone that wants to make a difference with a juvenile and help empower them to make better choices as they leave here, this is the place for you.
All right. Notice he looked right in the camera when he was saying all that. Peyton Swaggart has been a corrections officer at the Juvenile Services Center for nearly 4 years now, and she agrees with the philosophy of having a positive impact on kids.
So while I was in college, on the weekends you could volunteer in a program called Paint the Valley Purple, and that's when you'd go into the low-income community in the Maricopa County area, and you'd volunteer with them and you get to work with them on a one-on-one basis, and you'd have to hear stories from them that are very tragic and how they've had impactful people influence their life and have put them on a different track towards success. And you got to help them and make those connections and also be a part of their trajectory towards being successful. And during that process, I was originally going to be a psychology major and do something with childhood trauma, but my goal kind of changed after having a lot of those like one-on-one conversations with those kids, where they wanted people who would have been more influential with them when they were in those tough situations. And a lot of them had mentioned that when they had became incarcerated in Maricopa County, that they've had like case managers and COs actually help them along that track. So it kind of shifted my focus, and I ended up changing my major to justice studies, which puts me on the track to working here.
Officer Swaggart says the same sort of Hollywood misconceptions can apply to her job as well.
A lot of people from like the general public believe that it's like the movies, like we're walking through jail cells that are steel bars and we carry batons and they hear the keys jingling, and it's just a super negative environment, but that's not the case at all. Here at the Juvenile Services Center, it's a completely unique situation. We get to wear many different hats here. You're not just a CO, you can be a case manager, you can be a friend. Sometimes you have to be a parent. You have to be able to drop the CO wall and have human-to-human connections with the kids and be able to come down to their level.
I want to interject. That's got to be tough sometimes, though, isn't it? When you drop that wall and you try to connect with them on a more personal basis, that can be heartbreaking sometimes.
I think the hardest part is we work with these kids day in and day out, and you develop that relationship with them where when they are hurting, you hurt with them, because when you have to be the person who tells a kid that their grandparent died while they're incarcerated, that's a very human moment, and you have to be able to separate yourself from being a CO, and that moment you transfer into being more of like a friend type figure, and you have to be able to have that connection where you can communicate with them and understand all those emotions they're feeling, and vicariously with knowing them you feel those emotions too, the same way you would with your friends that you have out of here, your kids you have out of here. You develop that relationship where you truly care with the kids here, and that's where all those many hats come into play, because you're not just a CO at the end of the day. You actually care about the kids that you are supervising while you're here.
I'm curious, does it all get a little overwhelming sometimes?
I feel like we learn a lot of coping skills being here, where while you're here there are things that can become overwhelming, but when you leave you take steps to disassociate from here because we don't want to take that stuff home with us. So I've never been to the point where I've been completely overwhelmed here, but there are a lot of times with being a supervisor where you have to have a lot of those human type moments where you have to drop a lot of those walls over and over and over again throughout the day and have those human connections with every kid here and be the person that they lean on for that support. Because at the end of the day I used to supervise the swing shift, which was 2:30 to 11, and a lot of our staff leave at 5, the 8 to 5. So as a supervisor, I'd be the one that has to go around and talk to them and make that connection and be the person that they're leaning on because their mom and dad aren't picking up. They're overwhelmed, they're starting to panic about whatever's going on in their personal life, so carving out that time to talk to them was a really big deal for me.
Being a corrections officer is not an easy job, and you have to be able to do a lot of different things, but it definitely has its rewards.
This job is so fulfilling, and more than just being a CO, it comes back to the wearing many different hats. Is at the end of the day, if you can change one kid's life for the better and have them be better than who they were yesterday, that makes this job worth it in the long run. It makes every hard conversation, every hard day that you've had here worth it to know that you have impacted them in one tiny fraction. And that doesn't mean like they never become incarcerated again. It's just them being a better person than they were the day before.
If you'd like more information on becoming a corrections officer with Pennington County, just go to their website, penco.org/jobs, and find out how you can make a difference here in West 605.